All right, my question is, with World War II, were you told why the war was going on? What were you told was going on with, with Germany and
Oh, while we're in
Japan?
the service?
Yeah, like why was the war happening? What what did they
No,
say?
we pretty much knew why the war was going on. Of course, with Germany, with Hitler, how he strategically was taking parts of Europe, and so everybody was kind of furious about that. And it was only because there were a lot of people in the United States that didn't want to go to war again. We'd been to World War I and nothing came of it, and so they were really reluctant. But I was working in an aircraft factory now that was delivering planes to not to England but to us yet at that time, and they then of course the bombing of Pearl Harbor that made us furious with the Japanese, and so now we were mad at them and we were mad at Hitler. So everything came together. So the whole country really was there. I don't know today if that would happen, if we'd have everybody together again.
Was Japan trying to take over
The
Asia?
Japanese for years, we didn't realize, were taking over all of the islands in the Pacific slowly, and they were arming them, which we didn't know. And when Amelia Earhart disappeared, they still think that she erroneously flew over one of the Japanese islands.
Oh wow!
And they undoubtedly shot her down, and then they hit a plane and all, because she would have seen the facilities that they had. So, and the Japanese wanted oil, and they needed rubber, and that came from Indonesia, a lot of oil in Indonesia and all, and they needed those islands then. And so they were smart enough to know that by getting the islands, they had strategic places to repel any enemy, which they were smart about. And the only one that was against them, because we were in the Philippines with the United States. The Philippines were one of the stanchions. Corregidor was a big fort of the United States and all, and it was like the Maginot Line in Europe to keep the Germans from coming into France. Corregidor was to keep battleships and all from coming into Manila. Well, a whole different war was World War II. It had airplanes that could go over them. Didn't need to go through them. Didn't have to march through these big forts and all. And I felt sorry for those guys on Corregidor, because that's where they had the death march. The Japanese took all the remaining soldiers in Corregidor and made them march from Corregidor to the mainland, Manila, and up into the jungles. And I mean, they were tortured and everything else, just ferociously. And of course, when we took the Philippines on the invasion of Luzon and into Lingayen Gulf, which is near Manila, the Japanese knew we were coming. They knew they had lost Corregidor because we had defeated that. So they went around and they were just killing Filipinos like mad. They were burning their houses, everything. I mean, they were really savages, the Japanese were. And we went into Santa Tomas University, which is the university in Manila, and that's where Wainwright, the big general that had been in Corregidor, was sick, and the Japanese put him there. And when our troops went in, they were able to bring him out and save him. And of course, they defeated the Japanese at that time. And I can remember the Japanese loved bananas, and so when they took over the Philippines had lots of banana trees, and they required the Filipinos to plant banana trees along the highways all around coming into Manila. Now, in those days, you weren't like cities today on it. It was a smaller city. And well, what they didn't know is that the Filipinos planted banana trees that are banana trees, but do not produce bananas.
They planted the male versions.
And so when they come, they bloom and they blossom and everything else, but they have no bananas on them.
just
But the
pollen.
Japanese never blame it because they thought, oh, hey, wait, one of those things.
That's interesting.
So they were pretty good.
That's,
But you know, it's interesting. Every Jap had I have one out in the bin out there, a little piece of plastic. It wasn't plastic, like isinglass, and in it was their name and so forth in it. I don't know what it read. And if they didn't wear that, they could be shot on sight.
Wow.
And like the Jewish people in Germany. And I got a couple of them from the Filipinos. And about 5 years ago, a Navy guy was writing a story of the Filipinos and the war because his brother had been in the Philippines before World War II started even. And he was writing all of his adventures. And so I said, oh, I got these little bands that the Filipinos had to wear. And I sent it to him. And he was very pleased with them. And then he said he checked with people in Manila. And they knew nothing of this. They said, no, we don't know what those are. He went to the Filipino embassy in Washington. Do they know anything? What are those? They knew nothing about it. It's like, we forget this stuff, you know. And I can still remember buying these from these people and getting them. They had it. And that has happened all over, like in Cartagena, which is near the Panama Canal. Cartagena is, and the Caribbean, is the largest city that brought in the slaves from Africa. About every slave in the Western Hemisphere went through Cartagena, brought them there, and then they were distributed. And there was a priest there that saw these people coming in. He felt so sorry for them, so he tried to convert them to Christianity. And there's a big cathedral right there at the old dock that they built for him in memory of him doing the conversion. Well, when Lou and I took our last Caribbean trip, I wanted her to see that because she hadn't been with me on that trip. And the first one where we saw the cathedral and where the priest was and everything else, and the slave quarters. And so I got the buggy ride that they give you to go to the old section and around. And if you ever sat in a buggy for 2 hours in a trip over cobblestones, I mean, it's ugly. Well, we go for 2 hours all through every place. And I said to the driver, and there were two other people in it, I said, when are we going to see the old dock where the slaves were brought in? He said, what? I said, no, where the slaves were brought in. And the priest that was there with the cathedral they built for him and so forth, he said, what are you talking about? And now we're riding when he's talking, you know, trying. And I said, it's in the old section. He said, no such thing. And then I said, I shut up. I didn't say any more. It's like we don't want to remember it. And we went to the big, not prison, but out of Warsaw, where they brought the Jewish people, and where the furnaces all were, one of the biggest ones in Europe. We went to see that, and we'd already been to one outside of Berlin a couple of years before, and we saw the old beds stacked high. I mean, really ugly places to be in. And so when we were going, I said, well, I wonder how this will look just as bad. And they're saying they had like 80 people living in this one room and so forth and so on, and how bad it was. Well, we got off, and of course everybody in this, I think we were the only ones in the group, our group, that had seen this before, not at that place, but another place. And so they're all talking about how gruesome this is gonna be. Well, they're in it used to be an army camp, so these are really like big old barracks, but big ones. And they opened the door and we went in. The floor is newly painted.
Oh my goodness.
The walls are all painted like a color, yellow or something. The ceiling is painted. And it reeked of cleanliness. And as everybody came in, they said, oh, 60 people in here, they fit in here okay. This is beautiful. It doesn't exist. Anybody looking at this now will say, this is what they lived in. It wasn't, because I seen it years ago where they in Cartagena, they don't believe it happened. They don't believe it happened in the Philippines. You know what I mean? It's like World War II didn't happen. They've just let it go. In Warsaw, there is, who was the piano player in Warsaw? Mozart? Oh no, one of them. Anyway, the famous piano player came from Warsaw. And there is a park named for him. And the park has a pond in it about as big as the back property here. And it has a nice walk around it, and there's like a little jetty of finger that goes out into the lake. And on this is a cast iron piano. I might have told you this before. And the piano stand, and here is this famous piano player with his hands like this over the piano. And if you go at a certain time of the day and the wind is blowing, little ripples on the water, and the sunshine hits it just right, the whole shadow of the man at the piano and the piano are on the water. And you see his fingers going like this.
Oh, neat.
And they say, he is playing on the water today. You see this? Well, during the war, the Germans were collecting all sorts of artwork. And they took this piano and statue, which was very famous. And I forgot how many tons it weighed. Like 7 or 8. I mean, it wasn't light at all. They put it in a freight car, and they on its way to Berlin. And they had the Polish fighters from England flew across. They knew when the train was coming. The guerrillas had told them about it. They bombed the track. And while it was bombed, they went to this car, killed the soldiers on the car and all, took this heavy cast iron piano and statue off of the car, hid it. The Germans were so mad, it was one of the reasons that they bombed Warsaw again. I mean, really
Wow.
hit it. They were so mad at the Polish people. And that was never found. And when the war ended, it was brought back and put there, and it's there today.
Wow.
And we had this whole story when we went on our tour of communist countries. That was way back. And of course, Poland was one of the ones on it. And so all these guys had all these stories. Well, when we went back this last time, I said, we're going to see what they do about the statue and all. The guy said, what are you talking about? He said, nothing like that ever happened. That statue's been there all the time.
Oh my
Now,
goodness.
he would know. He's like 20 years old at that time, he
Right.
would know. But he said, the statue's been there all the time. We never heard anything like that. You're mistaken. So many of the things you see today are not real. It didn't, we talk about the memory of the war and so forth. It's going to just die out like it never happened.
That's why it's good for you to be sharing this so we can preserve the
Oh,
history.
you have to take everything you see, and realize what it might be. Like when you walk into that painted room, realize
Yeah.
these people lived in squalor in this thing, It goes right outside with the furnaces.